So welcome everyone, welcome back I should say, after a riveting first episode. I mean, it's not supposed to be riveting, but let's call it riveting for my peace of mind of another episode of Poetry with Chronicler. Maybe you missed last week's episode, I don't know how you would, because, you know, it was kind of the event of last week, kind of a big thing, but that's fine. We are yet again going to read some poetry today. We're going to listen to some smooth music. We are going to take it easy, and in case of you guys, hopefully take it sleepy. Unless you're just here for the poetry, you're not here for the calming content, which in of itself is also fun. Like, good for you for enjoying poetry. If you think poetry is boring, but that's kind of the point because it makes you sleep easier, it's good as well. Last week we had a bit of a longer intro, of course, because we also wanted to kind of introduce the format to you guys. For now, that won't be necessary because you know the format. We're going to read poetry. We're going to explain some things about. We're going to explain some of our reasoning. Why do we use the words that we use? What's the idea or the thought process behind it? What are the reference? Because I love referencing stuff in poetry, which is something that the poems that I chose today are going to kind of showcase that as well. Where you're like very pop culture heavy, a variety of different kind of, I want to say, like genres. You got like music, you got movies, you got books. Like we really like to get diverse with the little references that we sprinkle throughout everything that we got. And our poetry also, because I kind of felt like it was lacking. We're going to give a little bit more context to some of the poems. We're going to just go a little bit more in depth in general, the uses of words. And we also gave them all we're not being crazy. I'm not going to give all my poems titles, but we'll give some of them titles, which for your viewing experience might be a nice little addition. Without further ado, let's get started. The first poem is called Eternal Sunshine. I need to share more. You need to be helped less. I need me to live for. You have a heart of glass. I need to swim from shore. You should calm down unless. Weep now and kneel before the spotless mind under stress. Fumbles all the weight you bore. Do not think the soul forgets. Ooh, I really like the rhythm in that second part of it. I feel like the word usage in this poem is a little bit flat. So what I mean by that is I feel like it's very basic, and that's not necessarily a problem. But I need to share more. I need me to live for. I need to swim from shore. All those very basic rhyme, like more for shore. Not really anything riveting. Less glass and less. Pretty much the same. But the repetition is also kind of the point. If you watched last week's episode, you'll know that we are a big fan of repetition, of trying to repeat things to kind of deepen a certain feeling that you get from reading this poem, or trying to convey that. Now, what is the poem actually about? Well, Eternal Sunshine, if you don't know it, is a reference to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Great Jim Carrey movie. Would recommend watching that if you're into like kind of. It's really hard to pin down what kind of movie it is. You could call it like. It's kind of like a drama, but not really. It's like kind of, it has some sci-fi elements as well, and it's just a really nice, gorgeous, great soundtrack as well. Self-contained movie, and like great acting work as well from all those involved. So, would recommend that you check that out. And then, if you look at the actual meaning of the poem, I need to share more. You need to be helped less. Is about both of these sentences refer to the same person, which I think is not something that you might gather on like your first read or listen. But I need to be to share more. You need to be helped less. By switching between I and you kind of create a dynamic between one person and the other, whereas they're both to the same person. But if I just do I need, yada yada yada, then it gets very repetitive. So instead, what we chose to do is I need to share more. You need to be helped less. But you is me talking to myself, or the person in this poem talking to myself. Because something that we do a lot is we don't necessarily like if you read this kind of, like, if you read the poetry that I write, it's a version of me that's like not necessarily always me, if that makes sense. It's a bit esoteric, but the better way of putting it would be that you kind of get into a mindset, and like poems, for me at least, are always a bit more on the dramatic side. They're a bit more evocative, and that's not, you know, always me as a person. It's kind of a persona that you kind of take on. And then I think the second part, weep now and kneel before the spotless mind under stress, fumbles all the weight you bore, do not think the soul. I just think that flows really nicely. That's really it. It also, I like that it continues the rhyming scheme from earlier. So before bore goes with sure, etc. Same with stress and forget. And it creates a very nice little self-contained poem. So this is very form-free. What we're going to look at now is something that is not form-free at all, and that's haikus. And if you've followed my Twitter for some time, you might already know this. Every now and then, when I don't have anything to do and I'd like to entertain myself and hopefully some other people, what we do is we write haikus. And haikus are a Japanese form of poetry, which really is it's pretty basic. It is 5 syllables, then 7 syllables, then 5 syllables. That's it. That's the form. And generally there is kind of a nature theme underlying. The first 2 sentences often should kind of clash with the third one. The third one should be somewhat of a little turn. But we don't always do that. Sometimes just kind of go. But the thing about haikus is that because there's so little substance, I think it's really nice that you can kind of give them your own meaning. So I've prepared for you 3 little haikus here, little haiku triplets. And we're not going to explain them too much, because I feel like with haikus, as opposed to some of my other poems, it's really more about the meaning that you give to it. So without further ado, let's take a look at these little haiku triplets. Weather the waves, the riptide roars in your head. All will be alright. Ocean sings to me, distortion, heavenly croon. Waves, no self-control. Days blend together, the sinking feeling of time. Eroding sands melt. So there's 3 little haikus. Again, if you want to, like, I think haikus are simultaneously a really accessible and like inaccessible form of poetry, because you could give any fucking meaning that you'd like to them, right? Like, the fun thing about haikus is that when I do them, which is also why I love doing them for other people, is because you can make it very obvious what they mean, but you can also leave a lot in the dark. And that's really fun, because you can, like, if you do it well, you can simultaneously like burn someone and give them praise, and they will never really know what you mean. And if you look at these, I personally like keeping a little bit of nature, a little bit of the more calming nature of those haikus. So we have the waves, the riptide in the first one, then also ocean, more waves in the second one. A bit repetitive there, but these were chosen because they are somewhat similar. And then the final one is more about the feeling of time that you get, and Sands of Time, great game. Don't know if you played Prince of Persia, but back in the day, used to be really, really good. I don't think I've released any of those in a long time. I mean, I guess the place kind of got taken by Assassin's Creed, which is not really the same, but also they had a very middling movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, who is great. But yeah, so enough about that tangent. So eroding sands melt, the sinking feeling of time is more about how I think that anyone that, like, as you get older, and like I'm 26, I'm not old at all, but even it's more about the passage of time than it is about how old you really are. You can get somewhat, somewhat complacent, somewhat not sad, but just nostalgic for the time that has passed. Poem number 3 is called Grand Larceny. Take me out of here, you're the big thief. I long to see you in the flesh, sullen memories met with sweet relief. You have a mythological beauty when you whisper to me, your tears of grief, as tears will come with newfound belief. So Grand Larceny is just means Big Thief. Big Thief is one of my favourite bands. Was obsessed with them. They released 2 great albums last year. If you haven't checked them out, you definitely should. And this is basically just me like being like fanboying real hard, like real hard. Because if you take a look, so Grand Larceny titled poem just means Big Thief. You're the Big Thief refers to Big Thief. Might have gotten that one. And then the rest in the flesh, mythological beauty. All of that is just like really on the nose references to some of their lyrics. Mythological Beauty is an actual song of theirs, and it was a show that I saw live, I want to say in 2018, and it was breathtaking. It was amazing. It might have been 2017 even, but I think it was 2018, and it was one of the best shows I've seen, and especially now with Corona, we're not going to see any shows for the foreseeable future, so those memories really kind of keep you going there. If you look at the word uses besides that, it's nothing crazy. Thief, relief, yeah, grief, belief comes back again. There's some basic rhyme going on, but we're not doing anything crazy here. It's more about us just kind of showing how much we appreciate the band at hand. So we've talked a lot about references. One of my absolute favorite movies is a Blade Runner, both Blade Runners. The original one in the 80s with Roy Batty, Rutger Hauer, who unfortunately died last year. Might have been 2 years ago, actually. Time in that regard is kind of hazy. And Harrison Ford, and then of course the Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford yet again. If you haven't seen those and you like sci-fi, I definitely implore you to check them out. They're great. And we took some elements, especially from 2049, to make this poem. It's just called Dreaming Replicant Flowers. In deep wandering woods, 2 fragrant flowers bloom. Moons come and pass, and the wither cuts them deep. Ravaged roots under glowing grass, interlinked, approaching sullen sleep. The forest intervenes as life seeps, yearning for life a worthy cause. Tear-stained earth as flowers weep. Cells within, not all there is, not all that was. Different time, different world, a different room. 2 fragrant flowers bloom. I think in terms of how it flows and how it all comes together, this is one of my favorite poems I've written in recent years. And I don't want to get too much into the actual meaning of the poem, because it's about interpersonal relationships and how sometimes you can kind of feel like it'd be better for people to be apart even though you not really want that to, which is something that I'm sure I'm phrasing it so vague, everyone can relate to that in a certain extent, even though can be sad. In the end it will be better. But if I look at the word usage here, like there's a lot of alliteration, which again we use a lot. We mentioned that beforehand: wandering woods, fragrant flowers, ravaged roots, glowing grass, sullen sleep. But my favorite thing about this part is that it all ties together as well, and it creates a very strong and very contained kind of vision of a meadow, right? And like you're in this forest. And it's like a kind of a magical forest, and you're just wandering around there, and then you stumble upon these 2 gorgeous little flowers, right? Like that's a special moment, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. Not specifically flowers, but just going on about in your life and then experiencing something like that. Now, if you look at the specific Blade Runner, obviously, Dreaming Replicant, the original novel that Blade Runner was based on was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Replicant, of course, is the name for the makeshift humans. And then Interlinked is a reference to the poem that gets featured very heavily in Blade Runner 2049 as the test to see if a Blade Runner is indeed still as emotionless as he should be. And it also kind of ties into the theme of that movie, which is that life kind of finds a way regardless, right? Like it kind of creeps and goes wherever it feels like. And this is what this poem is about as well. Big fan of this. I don't often go and read back my old poems, because generally, like, I write them and that's the fun, and then we kind of leave it at that. But this one is a big one for me. And then we already reached the last poem of today. It's called Stolen Pulse. Deep breaths on the soft of your neck. Warmth you can't seem to find anywhere else. It never lasts. A soft touch on my back. Dawn always bleeds through as I reveal myself. A heavy head on my chest rests. The ebb and flow of you overwhelm. So, as per usual, we like to end on a little bit of a more positive note. This is a cutesy little love poem. It is just about the feeling of safety that you can be evoked when you are sharing a moment with another person. About how time can seem to just kind of slither away, just evaporate in a matter of seconds, and there's never enough time when it comes to moments like that, isn't it? And the ebb and flow of you is about kind of the general behavior that someone will exhibit, and like how, especially when you start out, right, when love is shortly or newly blossoming, I should say, it can be very overwhelming. It can be a lot to take in a positive sense as well, but just in general, it kind of encompasses all you do. And a heavy head on my chest rest can be also a kind of a warning sign that for now everything is fine, and everything probably will be fine, but it's also normal to kind of be afraid that it won't be. And on that note, we're going to assume that it will be, and we are gonna call it here for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a very good evening, a very good sleep, and we will see you all hopefully soon for a next episode, or the next episode, a new episode, or the next episode. It's fine. Viggo will probably edit this out, right, Viggo? I mean, I don't know. I'm not there for the editing process. He kind of makes those decisions on his own. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a good day, a good night, and see you next time.